I wonder if Robert Schoch is wrong about the Sphinx. I know he's a geologist and all that, but common sense about the age of the Sphinx. Because there are a thing called common sense and basic ability to observe and then do a comparative analysis with other things that you've observed and say, well, that looks like that and that relates to that. And the idea, anyone who suggests you can date the Sphinx at all by the weathering on it and relate that to the carving, I seem to be missing one basic simple matter, is that the head, why isn't the head all eroded away? Why is the head, as he's saying, the head was totally eroded away and recarved on a totally eroded body? Why would they do that? Or was it not the case that the body itself, they carved out, they took the rocks from around the place and thought they'd just stick a head on the protuberance of the limestone sticking up? That does occur within the deserts anyway, and the erosion is, it's not, how old the Sphinx is we don't know, but the body itself, has it been carved? I mean, is it not just cut out the stones around it for somebody? They cut out the stones around it and so left that body as it was, and just naturally eroded some time ago. But it looks like eroded by sea at some stage. It looks like that's been eroded by sea. And I'm just suggesting the Sphinx head itself could be quite new. But the rest of it, the blocks used for the other temples and what have you near the Sphinx could be extremely old. And this is the anomaly. This is the bit I think people are missing. I'm not against the old Egyptian thing being 36,000 years old or whatever. I'm suggesting that the Sphinx might not be that old, but just someone's just carved a head on the protuberance on a bunch of limestone after that was sticking out after thousands and thousands of years ago. And one of the pharaohs has carved a head on it at a later date. And everyone's confused by that, but I can't see how you can, massive rainfall, although it certainly looks like the tides is coming. If you look at the coastal areas of Australia where I live, you can see where the tides have worn away the coastline, the sandstone coastline especially, exactly like that is worn away on the Sphinx. And if the waves hit the rock, it'll pour down and wear it away exactly like the Sphinx is worn away, much better than torrential rain. Torrential rain, it may do the same, but you can look at many slag heaps and stuff like that will give you a bit of an idea of rain, how it wears furrows into hills or in England. For instance, if you want to do a comparative analysis, have a look at slag heaps from pit tips, and the rains come down, you can see how it makes those furrows in them. But it doesn't make the horizontal lines, and therefore we have to suggest that was done by the tide, or the seas coming in. And how that's measured, this is one of the great anomalies in all the discussion about the seas rises. People aren't considering that the land maybe rising up and down. They call it isostasy. Eustatic fluctuation is when the seas go up and down, but it's caused by Archimedes' theory. The land rises and it displaces the sea, and the seas rise somewhere else. Like the land, Greenland's rising because the ice shelves are melting from the last ice age. So therefore, and the coast of America is sinking anyway because of what's happening in the middle Atlantic. And then they're putting all those buildings along the Florida and say, oh, it's going down. Well, maybe it's going down because of the amount of pressure on it by putting all that concrete on there. But then as the land comes up in Scandinavia, it's raising. We learned this at school many years ago. Then the water's going to go somewhere, and it's inundating land somewhere. So no one can say the seas rose is one way of saying it. Maybe the land rose or the land goes down. I mean, it's not just the seas rising. At the end of an ice age, it's not just the seas rising. That's a really, really poor way of looking at it. And people aren't thinking it through. The land is moving. It's plastic. Isostasy. The land moves up and the sea can be displaced somewhere else, or the land moves down, the sea comes in and inundates it. So, that, and we don't know, that could happen quite quickly. That could happen up and down within a period of time quite quickly, because we're not there to witness it. We imagine geology takes millions of years or whatever, but we haven't been there to watch a major upheaval and cataclysm of massive upheaval of the Earth's crust to the seas, which there is evidence of. And the cause of it is disputed. It may not be a comet, as Graham Hancock and all these people are claiming. There's other theories and all what ought to be considered that we can go into on another video, but it's about the Earth's bursting, it seems, for some reason, maybe too much ice pressure, or whatever, or at one stage, and it becomes unstable, and boom, it bursts, spews magma into the air, looks like comets hit everywhere and burnt things and what have you, but it's just been the magma. It's come out of the Earth itself, and there's been massive upheavals. But to say the Sphinx itself is, to say you can say how old it is, or it's to relate the head of the Sphinx with the body of the Sphinx. Well, it's starting not to make much sense, because when you look at the size of the head and look at the erosions on the body of the Sphinx, then you have to say, well, the head must have been really, really massive before to be able for someone then to carve it down to another head because of all the furrows gone. And how do you, as a mason, how do you overcome the deepness of all those the furrows caused by all that rain? Or it wasn't rain. It was the sea. The sea washed the body, and therefore the sea didn't wash the head. Right? Maybe we're looking at, maybe the tide up and limits of the tide washed the body and the waves crashed against it, but it didn't touch the head. And that's another way of looking at it. Because someone's got to answer, Robert Schoch and all these people going on about the Sphinx. We have to look, stand back a little, stop jumping into conclusions. Stop jumping, stop pretending you know when you don't. Stop jumping to conclusions about something you are not certain about. There's no actual evidence to say, scientific evidence to suggest that you're correct when you cannot relate why is the head basically unmarked. It's, apart from someone damaging the face, it's unmarked, and it's inconsistent. There's an inconsistency there in the theory, then, in the principle of the theory, that if it's heavy rain, well, how would you get the head being like that unless it was a lot bigger and they could carve out the furrows later? Even then, that suggests the head was carved at some later date anyway. So, it's all a bit, it's best to leave these things open and not to jump to conclusions before you have actual scientific evidence that can be proved. And as yet, that hasn't been done. It hasn't been done. No one has proved when the Sphinx was built or carved, or whether it's just the head part that was carved and the body was just the result of removing all the stones from around the Sphinx for the temple they were building in the vicinity, which is much older because of the amazing precision of that temple. It's much older than, which seems extremely amazing sort of masonry to me when I was a mason, and I can have some bit of an idea on how it takes to move and shape these amazing stones. And they're beyond modern masonry to some extent. A hell of a lot of work. Anyway, I would like to, that's a suggestion that maybe there's no way to date the Sphinx and there's no way to identify when the head was carved due to the theory of Lorraine washing the back of the Sphinx doesn't ring true because the head's not worn away. And then, but the idea that the isostasy, the sea levels could have risen or the land could have gone down, and the water washing away then and hitting the body of the Sphinx like it does if you look at the tidal zones at the beach. Waves wash over them, it runs down. That looks like the thorough, the level there looks like there's two levels there. One's high tide, one's low tide. One's eye looks like high tide and one looks like low tide. And high tide is sort of more hammered, which is normal. If you look at a high tide on the beach, it's more like it's a heavier hit onto the beach. Just a bit again out into nature itself, observing what nature does, allows you to sort of get insight into, well, nature itself, the cause and effect of things. Thank you.